Good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Lisette, and I'm here to... Wait a minute. No, it's not. I'm Anurag Das, and we're here today in Lansing, Michigan at the NRG Series Modern 10K Trial event. We've got an exciting day here today. We've got some guest commentators, Drake Sasser and Devin O'Donnell, who have been covering with us 9 rounds of action-packed Modern today. Also, we're going to get into the top 8 a little bit, and tomorrow there's a 5K Pioneer Trial as well to cover. Let's welcome in Devin and talk to him about some of the Modern things going on as our subject matter expert on the format. Devin, what's up? How's it going?
If you're Joel Lisette, then who am I?
Ooh, you could be Tanner Grace. We could be like
I'll be Tanner then.
The dream team, but like number 2 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like aspiring or whatever it is. Yeah, it's great. We were actually casting together an event last week, or maybe it was the weekend before. I don't know. Time just out the window for me at this point. And I was so impressed with your commentary that, like, when Norman was asking, like, hey, we're looking for casters and things like that, I was like, this guy, get this guy. And already I could tell people in the chat, people watching today, super excited to have you here. And honestly, me too, because you make it easy for modern coverage. I don't have to worry. I don't have to sweat about any of the details. You feel me?
Right. Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. Thanks again for everybody who reached out. And yeah, it's going to be a good time today.
Absolutely. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. As players are getting ready for the feature match, let's just go over some of the things. There's some slides to go over as well. So today's event is a 10K Modern Trial with first place getting about $2,000-$3,000, but more importantly, 30 points for the Grand 22-23 Championship Series. I guess I'd call it the race, the points race. We already have a couple players queued up for the invitational event coming in, I believe, January, maybe next year, early next year, same like we had this year. So you see Piper Powell, Joe Bernal, Andrew Ellenbogen, and Ivan Espinoza, who was last year's champion, also qualified. You can see there, it's a pretty close race here. 71 points, Zoe Riederman, pretty popular name, Max McVety, Christoph Schlamm. Got a lot of people here playing today for those coveted spots and for a chance at the highest event, for the championship series. So I have a question for you. Let's talk about the modern metagame. Streets of New Capenna is the latest set that has really impacted the modern metagame. Anything interesting from that set that really strikes you? Like, we've got a couple events in the bag already. I think our last event was won by something like Amulet Titan, which is kind of a crazy thing to hear. Where's modern right now? What do you like about it?
So, regarding Streets of New Capenna specifically, I think the card that is on everybody's mind right now is Ledger Shredder. This is a card that came in pretty high. I know Aspiring Spike's been working a ton on it, and you've even seen some of the Murktide lists in recent Magic Online challenges and league results actually trim on Murktide Regent. I've even seen some lists that have cut Murktide Regent entirely. Now, I think that's a little crazy, but Ledger Shredder is incredibly powerful. The deck is just full of cheap, the blue-red Murktide deck, that's the deck we're talking about, full of cheap cantrips, cheap removal spells, cheap creatures, and it's a way to keep flowing. It's been an incredible card in that deck. As far as the metagame at a glance, we're looking at, traditional 4-color Omnath. We're looking at potential Hammer Time, Yawgmoth, various Cascade decks, whether that's Living End or Crashing Footfalls, and then the Murktide decks. I think that's kind of like the 5 quote-unquote pillars, if you will.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, no, I think Ledger Shredder is actually just phenomenal. I mean, everybody who knows me knows I play a lot of Legacy, and I've tried it in that format, and even in that format, it's doing stuff. Like, that's a format where people are calling to ban Murktide Region. So when you say that people are, like, cutting Murktide entirely from their modern list to play Ledger, to me, that's, like, red flags, like, everywhere. I'm just like, oh, my goodness, do I need to, prepare for, like, round 3 of, like... And also, can we just talk for a minute how, like, why does blue always get the best things? Can we give, like, white, like, a great card every now and then? You know what I'm talking about?
White got, in MH2, White got Prismatic Ending Solitude. I guess MH2 had a little bit for everybody, right?
That's true.
But yeah, blue does tend to get quite a few of the bangers, Expressive Iteration as well. I guess that's an Izzet card. But yeah, the format is pretty set in stone. I know you mentioned Amulet. Amulet's maybe on the outside looking in, I would say. But yeah, should be a really good tournament today.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this question: is if you could pick a deck to play today, what would you be playing?
I'd probably run back the same deck that I played in the DreamHack Dallas event last weekend, which was the Temur Crashing Footfalls deck. I just think that deck is, I don't think it has any horrendous matchups. It's kind of like I would even akin it to like the Jund of the formats, just like no bad matchups, but no insane matchups. And it's just a way to kind of punish people for it's the deck that gets to play the most free spells out of the MH2 card pool, and when you're that's something, that's when you have a good deck, is when you just can jam a bunch of free spells in it. So I would play the Timber Crushing Footfalls.
I think the biggest piece of wisdom that I ever got, like playing any Magic just over the years, is like the less mana you have to spend on your spells, arguably the better your deck is going to be, because you just you get to cast more spells, do more things. And so it sounds like the Footfalls deck is basically almost exactly that. I think for me personally, I would see, like in Legacy, I play a lot of like soup. Like I drink my soup. I'm a healthy boy, I play my Uros and all that sort of stuff. So naturally I would say, like, 4-color elementals, which the Yorion money pile decks, a little bit, snooze fest at this point, but that might be like my top competitive list. I think if secretly what I would want to be playing is something like Tameshi Combo or something, because that deck looks. You played that last week as well, and it looks like so much fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's a deck that I actually watched Gabe Nassif's stream yesterday. I know
Me
he was
too.
talking about potentially playing Tameshi in the Showcase Challenge this weekend. So we'll see if he actually does that. But yeah, that deck is a lot of fun to play. I also like his version specifically because he's gone a lot more fair cards, and he's like focused less on the combo. So he's kind of more of like just a 4-color soup deck that happens to have a random combo in it, which is, I think, a good way to approach the deck.
Gotcha. Yeah. If you had to guess about the metagame today, what do you think people would be playing mostly?
Murktide, 4-color, Cascade in some fashion, I think, are going to be the top 3 decks.
All right. Well, looks like we're ready to go in. So let's see if you're right on that. Let's see what we got from round number 1 here. And it looks like we've got Max McVety on Azorius Aggro against Will Kowalczyk on Amulet Titan. Now, keep in mind, Will Kowalczyk did win our last trial. So very, very well versed with the deck, which I think is something that's really interesting about Modern and Eternal formats in general. Is like, I was going to say, you've been playing a lot of Crashing Footfalls just over, not just like months, but like I would say like even like the past year, you've done a lot of that, right? And I feel like that sort of experience gets much more rewarded in an Eternal format than, say, like, Standard, for example, where you have a lot of rotations,
Right, I've even gone so far as to just start putting Yorion in my Crashing Footfalls deck. Like the way to make your deck better is just add 20 more cards, right?
Yeah, for sure. And just to clarify, when I say Azorius Aggro, I mean that can only mean one thing, by the way. Like it's hammer time, baby.
It's got to be hammer, right?
Yeah. So talk to me about this matchup. I think I'm not sure who's on the play or the draw just yet. We'll find out very shortly. But what are the key dynamics in this matchup? What are the decks trying to do? And what do we want to see like on turn 1s, 2, and 3?
Well, it's going to very heavily depend on who is in the play versus draw, because if you take a look at these deck lists, the Hammer Time and the Amulet Titan deck, there's not a ton of interaction from either player, so it's really just kind of two ships passing in the night. I mean, obviously, Will is looking for the namesake card Amulet, and Max is looking for a turn 1 creature followed by a Sigarda's Aid and a Hammer, and it looks like Max does have Sigarda's Aid Hammer in hand, so we might be in for a quick one here.
Yeah, so it looks like Will going to lead with Boseiju and Expedition Map. Any notable Expedition Map targets that you like? Boseiju is also going to be pretty relevant in this matchup, right? You can cycle it, destroy artifacts like Colossus Hammer, and even like cards like Urza Saga if you need to.
Right, yeah, I don't know. We'll take a look and see how many Boseijus Will has access to. But Boseiju is certainly a card you could map for bounce land if you already have the Amulet, can get you some more mana. So it really all kind of depends on what's in Will's hand here, whether or not he has that Amulet of Vigor.
Right. And keeping in mind, Will is on a mulligan here. We're going to see a Simic Growth Chamber come in, bounce Boseiju to hand. That's pretty sweet. You get to bounce a removal spell, put it back into your hand.
That's a nice interaction, for sure.
Although
but unfortunately, we didn't have the Amulet, so we don't have the Boseiju up this turn, so that's going to be a bit rough.
And for me, that's like, I'm sweating bullets right now. I'm just like, ugh, it's a Memnite, but Sigarda's Aid is in play. So literally this turn, you could see move to combat, turn sideways, hammer, lethal on turn 2, right?
Right, and you see Max thinking a lot here because he does have the Colossus Hammer, but he knows about the Boseiju. So if he, for instance, goes for the Colossus Hammer on the Memnite and he doesn't have the immediate kill, well, he is going to do it anyway. So he's doing this knowing full well that his Memnite is going to get destroyed by that Boseiju, but maybe he's just okay with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, right? The concept of just like playing tempo in the matchup, getting in those 10 points of damage. Now, your Esper Sentinel, which, is a wibbly 1/1, but, 1 point of damage over 9 turns, it will be lethal at this point. And you can also see Ink Moth Nexus in play, as well as Will's got something of a slow start here. Valakut coming into play tapped on the 3rd turn there.
Yeah, that should be the game. Max is a Stoneforge Mystic, so he can just go Stoneforge, get a hammer, attack with both, force the Boseiju, and then after the Boseiju resolves, hammer up the Esper Sentinel, and that should be lethal.
Jeez, I mean, it's turn 3 on the draw, and that is quite insane. Like, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, all right, so that's pretty brutal, but I mean, that is the power of this Azorius aggro deck, if you will, blue-white hammer time. That's kind of interesting, though. Blue was not really, like a namesake to this deck. I mean, going back in time a little bit, there was a certain cat. Yeah, and you can see Will's going to pick up the cards here, sees the writing on the walls. We're going into a game 2, and let's take a look at deck lists if those are available. We can talk about like sideboarding potentially, or if you have any thoughts of your own of sideboarding in the matchup. But yeah, blue in the Hammer Time deck seems to be like an evolution from just like the Luris ban, whatnot. Oh, perfect. We've got the Amulet Titan list here.
Decklist.
Yeah, so I see 2 endurances, 2 trackers, 1 Emrakul, the Promised End, a load of dismembers, Force of Vigor, explosives, a lot of other cards, Alnysis, Hearst, Boseiju, and Cavern of Souls. What do you like in the sideboard here?
So from the Amulet Titan side, we are definitely looking at ways to kill artifacts and enchantments and creatures. So we have 2 copies of explosives, 1 copy of Force of Vigor, and 3 copies of Dismember, along with an additional Boseiju. Those are definitely all slam dunks. From as far as what we're cutting, I'm not an Amulet Titan expert, but I think you tend to trim on. I guess they only have 1 copy of Explorer, so the Explorer is probably going to go. Maybe the Colossus is a bit slow. You could probably trim on some lands. Maybe you can cut the Relic. You don't need that in a matchup like this. But yeah, cut the main deck Endurance. But yeah, just anything that can kill a creature, we definitely want access to.
Okay, let's take a look at the Hammer Time list as well. We'll talk about sideboard options for that. But it's very interesting. I see 3 copies of Hushbringer. Wow, 3 copies of
Ooh, that's a
Lavinia.
lot.
Yeah, 3 copies of Blacksmith's Skill. This is a sweet card. March of Otherworldly Light, Path to Exile, Spell Pierce Needle, and Relic. What do you like in this matchup?
From the Hammer Time side, this is a bit interesting. So there's not. I think that, at least in my opinion, I think Hammer is generally going to be favored in this matchup. It's just doing it's a little bit faster, so I don't think that Max has to do a ton here. I'm also not really that much of a fan of any of these cards in particular. I mean, I guess you could, if you expect your opponent to bring in a ton of removal, you could consider something like Blacksmith Skill to protect you against Boseiju. The nice thing about Blacksmith Skill is it actually, unlike Spell Pierce, as it gets around Boseiju. Obviously, you can't Spell Pierce with Boseiju, but you can Blacksmith Skill it. So that might be one that Max considers. The Path to Exile potentially good against the fast Primeval Titans too.
Okay, yeah. Anything in the main deck that you'd like to cut going into this game, the first post-board game?
I would probably cut the Reality Chip. I think that might be a little bit too slow for this matchup. And looking, I kind of want to keep the Cauldron. I want to keep the Nettlecyst. Giver of Runes. No, that you probably want to keep Giver of Runes because your opponent's going to bring in a lot of removal spells. Spell Pierce, Reality Chip are cards that I'm looking to cut. I'm not really sure. Possibly a couple Esper Sentinels. Maybe you could trim a couple of those. Yeah, that's probably where I would want to be.
Okay, so you've seen both deck lists now, and I want to know, as someone who has played Modern for I don't even know how long at this point, who do you think is more likely to be ahead in this game too?
I do think that the Hammer Time deck is a little ahead. It's just it's just a lot faster than the Amulet deck. Now, obviously, they do have a ton of removal to bring in: Dismember, Force of Vigor, and Explosive. So maybe that changes the dynamic a little bit. But you have to remember, if you're kind of filling your curve with a lot of those removal spells, especially something like Explosives, which kind of requires more mana to activate, you might be kind of stumbling yourself a little bit because you're kind of playing off curve with those removal spells. So I still think I like the Hammer Time side of things.
Okay, gotcha. Well, players going to drop here. Let's see again if there's going to be another mulligan here on Will's side, or if we get to keep 7s on both sides and get to play some fresh early morning Magic. By the way, to anybody here, any of the champions in the chat, thank you so much for being here. We got 300 viewers already. If you haven't already, I'll say it once, I'll say it many times. Hit that follow button. Show NRG Series your support right now. We got a lot of paper Magic for the day. Max McVety going to take a mulligan down to 6. There are 9 rounds of Swiss here in our 315 player paper event. Let's go. It's awesome.
A lot of, yeah. I believe that it was capped, and then it even went a little bit past that. So a lot of people
Look at
wanted
that. That's
to
so
play
nice.
Modern today.
When you feel like you're not going to be able to make it into the tournament, and then just like Tio's like, you come on, you're here.
Yeah,
Let's play some
in.
Magic. We're here to play.
You showed up. All right, we'll let you in.
Let me ask you a question though. How do you feel about the Batman sleeves?
The Batman sleeves. I hadn't even really registered that. Those are awesome. I know that when I was on camera for your stream last weekend, I had some SpongeBob sleeves. The verdict
I
on those was
saw
a little
those.
not great. They didn't shuffle that well, but they were they were fun.
The presentation was clean though. It does send a message, when you just
It
I don't
really
know.
does.
I've seen those SpongeBob sleeves, and I look at them, and it's just like you lock eyes with SpongeBob in a way never before. It's like a hypnotic, like you get possessed, and then
Yeah.
it's yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. It's good. You should I love that. So Max is on a mulligan to 6 here. Now I feel like what you mentioned earlier was that these are basically like two matchups where the game plans are like sailing in the two ships sailing in the night, right? That's what you had said. So these
At least game
mulligans.
one.
Okay, game one. So game two may be where the mulligan might actually matter a lot because now that you have interaction, you actually do want to have raw card count. Oh, and there it is. Turn one, Amulet of Vigor. Let's go.
In my experience, when I play against Amulet Titan, they always have they never don't have double amulets. So I'm actually kind of surprised that Will didn't have one in game one. I've never seen that before. This is new to me.
Yeah, it's also that and like Tron as well, right? Your opponent keeps 7. You're like, oh, there's no way they have natural Tron on turn 3, and there's the Karn staring you down in the face. So, I feel you on that one.
Yep. 1-2-7.
Now I think we'll get to also see just like a difference. Okay, so this is good for a mulligan to 6. This is a very, very good start where you have the Sigarda's Aid on turn 1.
No creature though.
Want to have no creature.
No Memnite or Ornithopter.
I do.
And
see
we do
an
see
Inkmoth, right?
Oh, Inkmoth. Yeah, I believe so. Also, notably, I did see a blacksmith skill as well in Max's hand, so they did bring those in.
Okay. All right.
Very
interesting. I mean, bringing in the blacksmith skill means that you are expecting to play. I mean, Force of Vigor at this point is a known quantity in the matchup.
Yeah, and Dismember, I believe, as well. I think stock amulet lists usually play 2 to 3 copies of Dismember, so.
Okay, yeah. So that's just like doing your due diligence on the format, knowing that blacksmith skill will be good here. And honestly, with the Inkmoth Nexus, the Urza Saga can like fetch up a hammer. With Inkmoth Nexus, you could have a very, very fast kill on this mulligan to 6, which is terrifying, actually.
Yeah, Max definitely really wishes they could play a creature this turn, something like a Stoneforge or an Esper Sentinel, even an Ornithopter, a Memnite. But it does look like they also have, I think I saw March of Otherworldly Light.
That's an interesting one.
Because we're gonna hit the amulet with that, which is not too bad.
Big oof if I'm in Will See here because we didn't get any real value out of that amulet.
No. Yeah.
Which also makes me wonder, right? This start from the amulet side, the Titan side, is quite slow. I mean, we played a 1-mana artifact, and then we went land, nothing else. So, what do you think is going on here? Why is explain this play pattern?
If I'm in Max's seat, I'm assuming that Will's hand is just stock full of interaction and Titans, and that's probably why that Will kept their hand. Is okay. Azusa's not too bad. That actually bridges the gap nicely, and it's really awesome because you can't die next turn because there's no creature in play, so you don't have any fear of double hammer or anything like that. So this is kind of a turn where Will can just kind of play, set up shop as you see a couple lands here, and now we're setting up Titan mana for next turn. But yeah,
again, by the way. Yeah, I love that. The bounce land returning to Boseiju, Castle Garenbrig, and play. Can we see Titan next turn potentially?
We definitely could. There's that castle in play. Also, it's really worth noting Boseiju gets a nice little discount because the Azusa is legendary. So that's kind of cool.
I like that. That's awesome.
So you could see something will play 2 lands, activate castle, play Titan, hold up Boseiju, and that might be a little rough for Max if that's the sequence next turn.
All right, well, Urza Saga going to tick up to 2 here. I still see the Inkmoth Nexus. You mentioned the Blacksmith skill. What is the perfect play here for Max on this turn 2?
It's weird. Max's kind of just has to play setup here. He has Steel Shaper's Gift, Blacksmith skill, Springleaf Drum. I think that might have been 2 copies. Yeah, 2 copies of Blacksmith skill. So there's not really a lot going on in Max's hand. I mean, we could see a Steel Shaper's Gift for a Colossus Hammer. And then, the Saga can get another Colossus Hammer, but Max is really just playing to set up this turn. I think Max is debating on whether or not they want to make a Saga token. Personally, I would probably just play some other spells and not want to make a token. I don't think the token is worth much on this board because you're going to be killing with Inkmoth Nexus. You're not killing with that token, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's already a ground blocker here. Inkmoth Nexus has that really sweet interaction with Colossus Hammer, right? So normally Colossus Hammer will remove flying from your creatures, but Inkmoth Nexus has the ability to activate again after being equipped to regain the flying, I believe. So it is technically a very evasive threat here, and you can see that great call here. Max agrees. Time to play the Springleaf Drum. We're actually going to try to
Not
develop
going to
our
play the
board here as much as
gift, though.
possible.
Interesting that Max didn't want to play the gift there. I'm curious as to why.
What
I
line
guess
would you have
maybe
expected?
it's possible Max is trying to represent interaction here to maybe potentially, unless I'm not seeing it correctly in Max's hand, but I thought I saw a Steel Shaper's Gift. But yeah, I wanted to see Steel Shaper's Gift for I think Colossus Hammer. I guess if you already have the Saga, then there's really no reason. Well, you're kind of choked on mana is the issue because Max doesn't have like think about a scenario where Max goes Saga trigger on the stack, float mana, activate Nexus, Saga trigger resolve, get hammer, equip to Nexus. He has 1 mana floating to activate the Nexus. Yeah, I guess you have exactly enough, right? So you don't have enough to cast the Sagardazade next turn is the issue. That's kind of why I want to see it to save
You're like
mana.
in the Matrix right now. I can see all those like like the math meme with all the calculations going on. I love it. Like that's the kind of like I can understand modern like a very like high level, but like breaking it down to this degree is exactly why you're here today. We're gonna see Will sort of kick up the heat here. Summoner's Pact is gonna get an old bordered Primeval Titan. Respect the art very much, and that's in
The
play
only
now.
acceptable one.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. I love it. Does that come in foil by the way? I wonder. I don't. Yeah, it's beautiful. I feel like they should old border a lot more cards. In whatever future sets come out because that for me was a slam dunk. When I saw like Urza, Force of Negation, etc., all those
Mm,
cards was
yep.
nice.
Yeah, people have been clamoring for old border shocklands for a while now. I think that would be a nice addition.
Oh my goodness. Now you've said it, and that's all I could think of.
Yeah.
So from here, do we have a lethal setup potentially on Will's side, or is this going to be a pass the turn play?
With no Amulet of Vigor, there's no way to untap the lands. I believe Will is just kind of resigned to passing here, and given Max's hand of double Blacksmith skill and Steel Shaper's Gift, I mean, I believe that Max is dead because I think Max can even play around Force of Vigor because of the Blacksmith skill. So I think we kind of have everything covered here.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's actually a little bit absurd, right? Because I feel like once Primeval Titan comes into play, very well, I mean, in my experience, very rarely do I like, get to see people like survive that. So it's kind of cool that not only are we surviving the turn, but just like having the potential counter kill as well. Which just goes to show like the absurdity of this hammer deck. I think also another thing to think about is, this deck when Luris was legal was like basically the deck to beat, right? It was so
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. And despite a massive nerf here, you can sort of see it still has such incredible potential. Wow.
Right. The Luris ban didn't really kill Hammer Time. What it did is it prevented it sort of brought back Hammer Time's late game. Right. So the Hammer Time deck was always going to be really good at assembling these fast kills in matchups where your opponent didn't have a ton of interaction.
Yeah.
So the only matchups where it really lost its luster was in fair matchups like Jund and Blue Eye Control and stuff like that. So here we see a
Wow.
Dismember that's going to be met with a Blacksmith skill. And I believe
Okay.
that is well oh yeah, because Max still has the mana floating from the Saga, so you can just
Right.
reanimate the
So
Nexus. So
as a
that'll do it.
recap, for the turn, yeah, basically upkeep, tutor up the hammer with Saga. You can equip that with the Sagardazade to the Inkmoth Nexus, and then excuse me, swing in for a lethal shot here. And yeah, that's kind of absurd. Keep in mind, this was also on a mulligan on the draw, so
Right.
that was really a lot there. I mean, Max McVety, one of the most talented players here on the circuit. You saw, Max's name on the leaderboard there with maybe 60 plus points, very much so in contention. Round one win is an excellent start for the day here. And like you said, like Hammer Time. Oh wow, it's powerful. It's definitely powerful and favored. That blacksmith skill came up huge.
Right, yeah. And as we talked about during sideboarding, you really expect a lot of free or cheap interaction from the amulet side, Force of Vigor, Dismember. So the blacksmith skill does make a lot of sense in the post-board games where like we talked about, game one is really just two ships passing in the night, but games 2 and 3 is where there's a lot more interaction. So the blacksmith skill definitely does make a lot of sense.
All right. Well, there's no time to wait. We've got a backup match ready for you guys, everybody. Let's switch to it right now. We'll find out where we are in the game and what's going on here. So, it looks like we get to watch it from the very beginning. We have Nicholas on Esper Death Shadow against Korra on Amulet Titan. Some more Titan. Also, trivia. Today is Korra's birthday. So, chat, be polite. Wish Korra a happy birthday. That is awesome. Esper Death Shadow is kind of an interesting color combination. You know, I'm very familiar with the keyword Grixis Death Shadow. What's going on with an Esper list? I kind of want to know what's in this list. I see an Esper Sentinel.
Esper Death Shadow. Well, I'm gonna have to pull up the deck list now. You got me intrigued. But yeah, Esper usually means, I would say, Prismatic Ending. The other really nice white card that you get to play is Ranger Captain of Eos, which can also find you more copies of Death Shadow. So that is probably something that we're going to be able to see here.
Yeah, it looks like the deck also has 2 copies of Teferi Time Raveler and 2 Kaya Orza of Usurper. This is a crazy list. I like it.
Oh, Ledger Shredder too. We got some Murktide regions. Okay,
the word is the word.
Ledger Shredder in every deck.
All right, so it looks like
at what point is the Amulet deck going to play Ledger Shredder?
That's it should have probably already happened. You know, like. Oh, also, I'm actually gonna have to issue a game loss here to Nicholas. That is a basic Plains in the hand, and that version is soft man.
Oh no! Is that like the Dryad Arbor?
I would, maybe, yeah. I could definitely see that. This is the basic Plains, like the secret layer. I think that has like basically like the Oracle text.
All for text.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh no, you know what I mean?
What's on Korra's sleeves? I can't really tell. It looks like a video game of sorts.
Okay, I'm gonna put I'm gonna put my guess in here. Well, first of all, we're gonna see a turn 1 amulet, which is a great start here for the Titan side of things.
Oh yeah.
Is this like, all right? I don't know. I'm gonna shoot my shot. Advance Wars. I can't tell if that's like a little like robot on the patch.
It's hard to see.
Yeah.
Are we gonna Thoughtseize?
Oh my goodness! I also
we're
just
working
registered.
with from Korra's side.
Fully foiled out deck here on the Esper side.
Oh, there's a lot of foils.
Yeah. Thoughtseize is going to take a Primeval Titan. The hand looks to be 1 Arborreal Grazer
and some lands. 2 Grazers.
Yeah, and some lands. Yeah.
So not a lot of action from Korra's side, and the Prismatic Ending for the Amulet. So wow, that was a good turn for Nicholas.
This is exactly where you want to be when you're in any position against Amulet Titan. Turn 1, take your Titan and your Amulet, and now your deck, you're like, just what? Put the whole deck archetype in the graveyard. So kind of crazy.
Korra does have a couple of Grazers, so we can see. Yeah, we're gonna make green mana. We can play another Grazer, so we're gonna get to put a lot of mana into play, which is good because obviously then any top deck Titan will be ripe for playing there. And we have the castle too. So funnily enough, even though we got Thoughtseized and Prismatic Ending, if we draw a Titan, we can still cast it.
Yeah, and we
don't have a second green to activate the castle. Never mind.
Okay, maybe a land off the top 2 would help there. It's not like we're super under pressure here. Well, I say that.
You say that, and now there's a Death Shadow. So.
Yeah, my bad. Caster Curse 2 real. I forgot.
What is that? Looks like a promo of sorts. Is that Azusa? I think it's Azusa. Okay. I think so. That's your guess is as good as mine on that one. So
I'm so sorry, but this is the one thing that I realized. Like casting Paper Magic is like there's so many like new arts to like get adjusted to that. Yeah, like if you say it's Azusa, I'm gonna trust you here. I'll be real with you.
Oh, chat's saying it's Dryad. Okay.
Dryad Arbor, right? No, I'm kidding.
We got that wrong a lot last weekend.
Yeah, this time Dryad of the Elysian Grove, but that's a good blocker. It's got 4 points.
It is a good blocker. Shadow is currently a 4/4, so we're going to hit in for 4.
Take it back. Maybe it's not a good blocker then.
And another Shadow. Okay, so we're kind of amping up the pressure a little bit. Korra really needs to find that Primeval Titan. Basic Forest, basically the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I think Death Shadow is just so scary, is right because you could put on a fast clock out of nowhere. I mean, this is like what turn like 3, 4, and we already have a crazy board, 2 4/4s.
You know what's really interesting about naturally drawing the Dryad is if Korra draws the Valakut, which was that a Valakut?
Oh no.
Oh, Nicholas is at 9, and now we have Valakut plus land, so we can deal 6 damage to Nicholas. That was actually a really interesting top deck. Now, question is, so here's the awkward part, right? If you go upstairs with the Valakut, you make the Death Shadows bigger, which then makes you have to chump block. So it's the question of, where do you go here? Do you go upstairs with 1? Okay, it looks like we're going after the Shadows.
Okay. All right. I can get behind that, right? I mean, in theory, what you could do is just like try to draw land, win the game next turn. But this is a lot more, I would say, controlled, disciplined. Yeah, exactly, right? So I do like this play here by Cora. One thing that I will note is that we do see a copy of Ledger Shredder in the hand here for Nicholas, but unfortunately, no blue mana. In fact, no third land at all.
I believe Titan should definitely be game here. Let's see if we drew a Titan. We probably would have cast it by now, yeah.
Yeah, it was just a windmill slam it, you know?
Yep.
I love the no manners windmill slam. It's always makes me feel good, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Nicholas is on all blue cards, no blue mana, and Cora's on all lands, no Titans. So who draws out of it first?
This is going to be kind of tricky because we see a copy of Amulet in the land.
So the Shadows are 4/4. So what we can do is we can Gruul Turf, trigger the Valakut, pick up the Gruul Turf, and then replay the Gruul Turf, kill the other. We're not picking up a land with the Gruul Turf. I don't know if it matters, but
yeah, I don't think it really matters because I mean this Death Shadow is going to force a chump block here, and then unless we draw maybe exactly, Titan, we might just be out of it. Yeah.
The issue is, it looked like Nicholas found blue mana, so now we're just going to drown the Dryad, and then we have lethal with the Shadow.
Okay. Yeah.
Picked up Forest. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yep, so that is going to do it.
All right, well, let's see if we can take a look at Decklist here. I want to know what's going on in this Esper Death Shadow list, because
Me too.
That color combination is like absolutely sweet. We'll take a look at the main deck really quickly. I see 4 Death Shadow, 4 Esper Sentinel, okay, 3 Ledger Shredder. We see the 4 Planeswalkers, a couple Murktide regions. Like you mentioned, there's also Ranger, Captain of Eos, and then the generic disruption in the form of Drown in the Lock, Thoughtseize, and removal, Fatal Push, Prismatic Ending. In the sideboard, Sanctifiers, Torox, Solitude, Unearth. That's a sweet one. 2 Dovin's Vetoes, 2 Force of Negation, Akaya's Guile, and then Chalice of the Void and Engineered Explosives. What do you like to bring in here?
From the Esper side against Amulet, definitely want access to these Solitudes, and potentially the Chalice of the Void. It's an interesting one because you can shut off Summoner's Pact, so I would consider bringing in the Chalice, but definitely the Solitudes. I don't think there's a ton that I like from the Esper side, though.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of interesting, too. You were talking earlier about like how Murktide is or Ledger Shredder is taking the place of Murktide region, and this literally, it's actually happening. You're like a prophet of sort. I don't know. We'll take a look at the Amulet deck list, too, if that's available, and then I want to get your thoughts on sideboarding here. So 3 Dismembers, a list of a number of endurances. Again, a lot of what we were seeing in the earlier deck list, too. Tireless Tracker, Emrakul, Force of Vigor, Engineered Explosives, Relics, Boseiju, Cavern. I mean, it looks like it's almost like the exact same deck, maybe 1 or 2 cards off. How would you board in this matchup with this sideboard?
I think it's at least the exact same identical sideboard. But from the Amulet side of things, in this matchup, I definitely want access to the Engineered Explosives, very good at killing Death Shadow. Relic of Progenitus is something you can talk yourself into because Dryad in the Lock, Relic is very good at kind of mitigating Dryad in the Lock to an extent. Dismember is probably something you want access to, but you got to be careful with Dismember because Shadow can get out of Dismember range, relatively quickly. And Endurance as well could be something that you want to bring in again to fight the Dryad in the Lock. So I'm looking at potentially those cards and maybe the Tireless Tracker.
Okay, well, I think we might be ready to go to game 2 for our time-shifted match here. Again, if you're just joining in, we are in Lansing, Michigan this weekend. We've got a Modern 10K trial and a Pioneer 5K trial tomorrow here, sponsored all by Nerd Rage Gaming. Check out their website, follow them on social media, and hit the follow button here too. Show some love. We got Turn 1 Amulet namesake card in the deck for the green side of things, and time to disassemble on the Death Shadow side.
Amulet's definitely where we want to start, and then from the Shadow side, we're looking likely to curve Disruption, maybe like Shockland, Thoughtseize on the first turn or two, and then try to play a fast Shadow. The Amulet, this is one of those, definitely a racing situation for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Street Wraith cycles, Bobble checks the top of the deck.
Okay,
Godless Shrine.
That's our best start.
Yeah.
And we see a second Amulet, a map. That's the promo. A Pact and an Engineered Explosives. Okay. So pretty good hand for Korra. Well, now that we've taken the Pact,
Ooh.
Korra's hand was basically all rolled up, but now that we've lost the payoff, now we have to find another payoff. Now, notably, Korra does have Expedition Map, which can get Tolaria West. The issue is we don't have any blue mana for the Tolaria West, so we need to potentially find something like a Simic Growth Chamber with these double amulets will give us a ton of blue mana to be able to transmute the Tolaria West and so on and so forth.
Well, this is kind of big here. We've got a bounce line coming into play this turn, generating a number of mana, and it looks like Expedition Map, the promo one, coming down first. I like that sequencing. And with the floating 4 or 3 now down to 1, we're going to tutor up a land. Let's see if it actually picks up the Tolaria West. Looks like we're skimming right past it, but that's an Urza Saga.
Okay,
maybe that.
Saga's not a bad one.
Land drop is made for the turn, though.
So I guess Korra is planning on just trying to go beatdown mode with the Saga tokens. I guess it's probably better than getting a Tolaria West because, again, if you get Tolaria West, you're kind of under the assumption that you find blue mana, like something like a Simic Growth Chamber. I guess there's also the potential of just not sacking the map this turn, but the only problem I have with going Saga beatdown is it's not the best against a Death Shadow, because Death Shadow can kind of outsize the Saga tokens pretty easily.
Okay, makes sense. Looks like Thoughtseize number 2 going to come down, take care of an Engineered Explosives, and that's bad. There's no second land here from the Death Shadow side of things. I see a hand of Dovin's Veto and Teferi and Ledger Shredder, and while these cards are all cool, if you can't cast them...
Oh, another Dovin's Veto. Yeah, Nicholas has got nothing going on. No shadows. It's just their hand is just all Shredders, Vetoes, and Planeswalkers, so...
Meanwhile, here, Korra going to go full on here with the Urza Saga attack squad. Another Urza Saga coming down here. Endstep making a 3/3 construct.
That Saga plan looking a lot better now. Remember how I said it wasn't the best against Shadow? Well, when they don't draw the Shadow, it looks a lot better.
Yeah, Oof. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of damage coming through. I mean, is this a 2-turn clock potentially?
Nicholas is at 12, so yeah, I would assume so. Because I see looks like we're at 5/5 right now with the constructs, so 5 and then 10. Yeah, definitely a 2-turn clock.
Okay, yeah. And then even so, the Saga itself could tutor up another artifact and potentially make the numbers work out even better. So like that's quite incredible here.
Thoughtseize. Might as well cast it for some free information.
And that's a game 3 right there.
All right, game 3.
All right. Well, we will take a quick break from that match. I wonder if we are... Okay, yeah. So we, I mean, I want to know... Well, okay, so the most important thing is you got to cast your spells. I think that's very much so. Do you think if based on that hand, I mean, I saw a couple copies of Dovin's Veto come into, from the sideboard. How do you feel about that card in this matchup?
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I'm not the biggest fan of Dovin's Veto from the Esper side of things. It's really, I think, not only I'm not a. It really only answers stuff like Summoner's Pact. It doesn't answer Titan directly. It does answer Pact, but the issue is you don't want to flood on a ton of those expensive reactive cards because it is a very high pace matchup.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier. Yeah, like I mean, it's just about getting down to business and putting those large mana creatures into play and just like turning sideways, ending the game ASAP. And I do think that Dovin's Veto doesn't exactly mesh, but I wonder if there are better or worse cards that may have come out instead. Again, I think what really does matter though is just making sure that you have mana to cast your spells here. Let's take a look at game 3 when we do get a chance. I do want to see the resolution of this. I think now with Death Shadow on the play, potentially it'll just be a lights out, sweep the leg, Amulet of Titan getting O2'd in the first round of the event sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, you saw Nicholas kept a hand. I think it was 1 land Street Wraith Thoughtseize. I think Nicholas probably had a couple Thoughtseizes in their opener, so probably a reasonable keep from Nicholas' side. But let's see if we can get some more lands going on here. I see at least
Solitude.
1. Yeah, there's the Solitude.
Yeah, looks like Korra's going to take a mulligan down to 6 here potentially, and I see Street Wraith. What I'm assuming is a Flooded Strand, a promo art, and then
yes, that's a Flooded Strand. I know that because I have 4 copies of those.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
I like that art.
Nice. Is that old bordered card? Is that? It looks like I'm not sure what other old bordered cards there are. It might be a prismatic
I think it's
ending?
a Ranger Captain. Yeah, it could be ending.
Okay. That would be kind of cool. So now here's what I'm curious is like, do we have the same level of cheap interaction in the early game from the Esper Death Shadow sort of thing side of things? And if not, does that mean that the Amulet player will be able to steal a game here on the draw? Because being on the draw is against a very very aggressive deck, not exactly the best feeling.
Yeah, on the draw, mulliganing against Thoughtseize. I mean, at least you get to be on the draw, so you kind of, you're not down as many cards, or you're not down an extra card. So we see a cycle of Street Wraith here. I don't believe Nicholas had a Thoughtseize in their opener. No Thoughtseize, so we're gonna probably play a Sentinel here.
Okay,
So
Sentinel's
that's
good.
good for Korra,
Yeah,
because now then if we have an Amulet, we can just kind of slam that.
which is kind of interesting too, because I feel like Sentinel was the kind of card that I originally like very much so underestimated. I used to think that this card, like, okay, it's fine, you just like wait a turn, but then when you combine it with these like hyper aggressive decks, you really do get to leverage the passive like income of Esper Sentinel to just draw all these extra cards, which I think is just beautiful. Like forcing your opponent under the gun to. I mean, maybe that's how this card was supposed to be played. We even saw this card in the hammer list as well. Just taxing mana from the amulet side of things. And I wonder if in this kind of matchup, you probably don't bring in. Okay, well, you do bring in engineered explosive. That's pretty good, but not like force of vigor and
Yes.
things like that.
No, definitely no Force of Vigor, but it's especially nice as the format gets a lot more spell based. Like you see all of these like Murktide Regent decks they're going a little bit lower on creatures. As more people play spells, and you have an Esper Sentinel on turn one, your opponent's gonna trigger that thing a lot.
And here we see it finally. Ledger Shredder into play, turn
First sighting.
2. And Simic Growth Chamber going to bounce. Okay, land, and then we still have this engineered explosives on 1 for the Esper Sentinel. So maybe we just sit on this EE for a little while. It's hard to say. Depends on the rest of the hand here. But who do you think is ahead so far in this early game?
Well, that might change my opinion. I believe the Shadow player is. It looks like we also have a lot of good leftovers. There's a Shadow. Wow, trigger the Shredder. Yeah, and with Korra without any access to amulets so far, I believe the Shadow player is definitely ahead, and then we have a Street Wraith as well. That's pretty nice. Yeah, so we're going to be able to put a lot of pressure into play, and then at least the nice thing is the drown's kind of turned off. There's no cards in Korra's graveyard, so that is kind of cool. You see a nice interaction. I think Nicholas was at 13 when he played the Death Shadow. So what happened was Nicholas played the Death Shadow, trigger Connive, and then still with the Death Shadow on the stack, they cycled Street Wraith.
That's pretty sweet. So that's so cool. Yeah, get a little bit more information for the Connive before committing to the -2 life loss here. And now suddenly this board is looking really terrifying. 3 creatures, but here comes Azusa. Maybe some hope.
Dryad.
Oh, it's Dryad.
Dryad.
All right. I feel it. I feel like the inner Joe in me coming out here. I mean, I know he's not here, but that's perfect. Now that he's not here, we just can take so many jabs at him. Like, it's great. Yeah. I'm so excited. All right. No, but this is the caster. I feel it. I feel it. Beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But
now, what happens when somebody has Dryad Arbor and Dryad of the Elysian Grove in their deck? What do we do?
Oh, it's over. I put that in my contract. I told Norm I'm just out. I'm out the door if that happens.
All right, so we're gonna a fetch shock here to grow the Shadow. Trying to see what we have left over. So it looks like Shredder, Solitude, Ranger Captain, and I think another Shadow as well. So we're probably going to see an attack for. We're gonna go Shredder into Shadow. God, that's such a good turn. We get to trigger both Shredders. Ooh.
Also,
we even. Go ahead.
I was gonna say if we could like Solitude somehow this turn, that'd be pretty sweet as well. Just like really put the pressure on here. Yeah. It looks like we're gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say our leftovers were Solitude white cards. So
yeah. Conniving twice in one turn.
Yeah, I know. This is way too much for me. It's too much value.
Oh, I love it so much. Now I mean, Korra's at 16, which doesn't look like a low life
Korra's
total.
At 18 from the Solitude, and then we can go 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, well, now we're going to go to 10 and play another Shadow. I don't realistically think Korra has any outs here. It definitely starts with explosives, but the thing is, we're not going to play the other Shadow. Maybe I missaw that, or maybe Nicholas just wants to hold it to potentially try to play around that explosives at the top. That's what I was going to say. Is Korra, if Korra draws explosives, maybe they're back in this, but
I don't think I saw. I think I saw another top deck Dryad here, which is not where you want to be facing down this much pressure.
A Pact, a Dryad. I mean, if that Dryad survived, we did have Pact for Titan, which could have got Valakuts, but because that Dryad survived, we're in a much, much worse position. Or because the Dryad died.
Yeah, and I guess in this situation too, like there's not even a real reason to play the second Death Shadow. You literally have lethal in play right now, like 2-2-1-5. Quick math. Yeah, there we go. Good job, Anu. Yeah, nice.
I was thinking if this happened, where you'd want the second Shadow to be able to attack, right? So you
Wait a
have
minute.
Titan
What?
blocking the Shadow.
I literally just
Yeah.
closed my eyes and there's a Primeval Titan in play. What the heck just happened?
Also, connive, because
Oh.
Pact into Primeval Titan.
Oh, it just doesn't stop.
It just
Ledger
never
so
stops.
good.
It's so good. I also get that a lot when I play a Cascade spell into a Ledger Shredder. That's not the best feeling. But.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah, I saw it. That must really feel bad, like if that ever does happen. I mean, but you get rhinos as compensation. That's pretty nice.
True. I guess I'll live with some 4/4s.
My highlight reel with Ledger Shredder, I was playing it in Legacy, so that's how you know already. But it was a 6/8, and on the other side there was a 6/6 Murktide, and I was just like cackling internally. I was just like, "Yes, this is justice."
Yeah, okay, see, who needs Murktide Regent when you just connive 7 times with the Ledger Shredder and just, it's bigger than
and like that's what happens in these style of decks, right? You design them so that they're very interactive. You can slow the game down so that Ledger Shredder actually gets to connive, gives you selection passively. Like it's poetic. It's so poetic.
Yeah, and then the Shadow deck has a lot of cheap spells, right? Obviously, Prismatic Ending, Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, Death Shadow. It also has Ranger Captain Evios, which, if you have 4 mana, is a double spell turn, so something like that too.
It looks like Primeval Titan going to tutor Valakut and Radiant Fountain, I believe, getting 2 life, going up to 10 here, which means we're probably not dead on this exact spot, but board is still very menacing. Now we're going full circle. Maybe that Dryad that we top decked last turn could be good.
Does Korra have to block here? 8, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, no, yeah, Korra definitely has to block. Because if you don't block, you die to Street Wraith, right? 7, 10, 13. Yeah, so you do unfortunately have to block. I was going to say Korra's in a pretty good spot if we don't have to block the Death Shadow, because we can go play Dryad, attack with Primeval Titan. But, okay, so what does Korra need here?
How about Dryad into double land?
Ooh, is that lethal? Oh my god, that's crazy! Wow, drew the second Valakut. I think we had lethal anyways because we can just play a second land. So yeah, that was crazy. Crazy game.
I love Magic the Gathering so much. I love it. I love it. I love it. That was so crazy. I mean, you're playing Magic on your birthday, and round 1, your opponent puts like 20 points of power, and you're just like, burn.
Right.
It's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
That being said, though, yeah, I think it was really close, and I think like based on what I watched there, 2 things. First is Ledger Shredder looked so good. Even though you didn't necessarily win, the value that it provided was immense. And then the second thing is, man, these aggressive decks are really scary from the Titans perspective of things.
Right, and the nice thing about that matchup specifically is in order for Death Shadow to present a fast clock, it has to pay a lot of life. And you get into these situations where even if you're on low resources, as long as you have a Dryad and a Valakut, it's usually enough to just kill your opponent.
Yeah, that brings me back to, I remember when I was first looking at Death Shadow, one of the most interesting matchups to me personally was like Death Shadow against like Burn. I was watching Jarvis, you play this a long time ago, and he was like, yeah, you just have to really delicately like dance. It's like ballet almost, like keep your life total high enough, apply enough pressure, but then don't die to all their burn spells. And then from the burn side too, is just like, how much can I sling at you, to get away with this? And I think that was super interesting.